Our next speaker I'm going to be introducing. We'll continue this show, and thanks for keeping on time, Scott. We appreciate it. Our next speaker is Alexandra Perry. She's representing the Trafalgar Addiction Treatment Center, and Alex and I have had a couple brief conversations this week. It's been pretty good. And her write-up is, Alexandra Perry recently graduated with a master's in adult education, governance, and policy. She is currently executive director with Canadian Addiction Treatment Centers and formerly director of community partnerships and client services for Homes First Society, a housing and homelessness registered charity which serves the hardest to house in Toronto. Before this, Alexandra was clinical director at a treatment center and has recently joined Guelph Humber as faculty member within their addiction and mental health postgraduate program.
As Dan said, I'm Alexandra Perry. I'm the executive director of Trafalgar Treatment Center. I'm not too sure if you guys are aware of us, but we do some amazing work supporting people from your teams, and we're super proud of it. And we're very thankful to be here. So to Kevin and Craig, who's hiding over there, you have both been so lovely over the last few weeks. These two are quite the pair. I don't know if anyone gets to work. They are a lot of fun. So in addition to what Dan was saying, I just wanted to give a little bit more background about myself. I've worked in pretty much every single sector, so private, public, nonprofit. I've worked with NHL players. I've worked with people who've been chronically homeless for 47 years. And I'm going to ask you guys a question. There has been one thing in common with every single person I've worked with, and I want to see if anyone knows the answer. Self-conscious, okay. Yeah? Pardon? Human. Oh, love that answer. Yes. Specifically when it comes to maybe addiction, what do you think that could be? Something in common? Yes, go for it. Looking for help, okay. Anybody else? Trauma. Okay, we're dropping big words over here, Dan. Yes, trauma, absolutely. Anything else to add? Yes, Scott.
They've had someone affected by addiction.
Okay, yep. I meant to come around and do this, get my steps in today.
Are they more of an empathic person, like where they take it all in?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, another one, shared trait. I would say all of that is stress, okay? There's a lot of different forms of stress. We have chronic stress. We have acute stressful experiences like trauma or a traumatic event. It could also just be stressful being a human sometimes. You know, we have anxiety, all of us speakers. This guy is so motivating. He got me to go to a casino for the first time last night. Okay, first time. I lost $60. And the entire time he was like, "You're great." And I'm pretty sure I wasn't. But he got me to believe it. So that's good. Anyways, yeah, so stress is having a really big impact on all of our lives. And I'm really happy to be here today because I'm hoping in the next 45 minutes I can try and do a good job to kind of tie in a lot of the things we've talked about today. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have too much time to, dive too deep into each of these categories, but I want to do a little bit of an overview of what addiction is, recognizing our risks in any setting, not just workplace, in our lives, how we can create safe spaces. And, we talk about this stuff, like let's create a safe space. Yeah, that sounds nice. But what does that really, really mean? And what does that really look like? Same thing for challenging ourselves. And the last one is probably the most important, which is normalizing asking for help. Okay, so with that, I think I would also just add going back to seeing and supporting people from all walks of life. I want to really stress that when it comes to addiction, I think we're all one experience away from it. One. Okay, it does not have to be lifelong. It doesn't even have to be, or the opposite. It can actually be a very short-lived experience and go really, really fast for everyone. So it's one, I like to say, this is my opinion based on the things that I've done, it's just one experience Okay, so we're going to keep talking about that. Okay, overview of addiction. So I'm going to throw it out to you guys. What is addiction? Yes. Mm-hmm. Great definition. So dependency and impact, I think, are key words there for sure. What else? Guys, you're like across the room together here. Let's go, Shannon.
It's also when you lose control of yourself to be able to stop it.
Yep. Dan.
Maybe I'm not giving the full, I'm not answering your question directly, but maybe there's a difference between mental and physical addictions.
Yeah, absolutely. My next question, kind of like a part two, is are addictions only substance-based? No? Okay, so what does that mean? They can be behavioral addictions? Yeah? And what are some of those? Pardon? Food? Yes, absolutely. Pardon me? Yeah, like an addiction, like seeking that? Absolutely, yep. Gambling, not going to be good for me with the casino. Instagram, social media, oh my gosh, such a good one, yes. Exercise, yep. Can definitely teeter over to having maybe too much, yep, for sure. What about work? I've talked to some of you one-on-one. I won't look at anybody as Kelvin points to himself. I identify too as a workaholic. So yeah, addiction can be substances, they can be behaviors. I would say really anything that, I loved your first definition, can have a negative impact on our lives and those around us. And really great job knowing that this is not just substance use, because that's a lot of the work that I do. People come in, alcohol, opiates, but we don't talk a lot about behavioral addictions too. And when it comes to the workplace and stress, sometimes it can have just as much of a physical impact on our lives. And that's what we're going to spend some time talking about today, around burnout, okay, and chronic stress. So I might keep going here. We've done some stats. These are very similar to the ones that were shared before, so I'm not going to bore you guys. And I only have 45 minutes, and I know I'm tight on that. So a couple more I want to share is leadership. Everyone here is in a leadership type of role. I'm in that type of role as well, so we're all peers. Some studies show that 36% of our employees would discuss a mental health concern with us as a manager. That means 74% of our employees would not talk about their mental health with us. So, okay, that's a good place to start to know we need to work on that. Interestingly, though, a lot of the mental health issues that we come across are really easily fixed. Quick fixes, small thing and routine. So if I'm trying to think for my manager, if I've ever really struggled with burnout or anxiety or something like that, I've said, I need to really get some time back. I need to clean up my schedule. And my manager might say, perfect, go take a work from home day. That's probably going to solve a good amount for the person that's sharing their struggles with you. I put a little thing that I always use with my teams here is difficult emotions. So we define those as like anger or frustration or intense sadness, resentment, more than negative emotions. If we simply validate them, I understand you're tired, I hear you, 90% of that emotion is decreased right off the bat, just by saying those words. I feel like that's pretty simple, right? We can do that pretty easily. So a few times in this conference so far, a lot of us speakers have kind of all mentioned not complicated. You don't need a degree in this. It's not about a training. It's really about what the table in the back mentioned, being human. Okay, if you need something, odds are you could probably give that to someone else and you're going to do a great job helping them. So if we know about it, if we know about the person's mental health or substance use, we can do something about it. Okay, so that's good to know. We talked a little bit about mental health before, so I don't mind quickly reviewing this, but again, I don't want to bore you guys. Just like our physical health, you know, we need to eat right, we need to exercise, we need to get our sleep, we need to make sure we rest. Our mental health is the exact same. We need a balance of all these really important things, and that's a little bit of social connection, community, which is what you guys are talking about today. Physical health definitely plays a toll on that, so we're not physically feeling well. That could be a risk for substance use. And then also emotional balance or wellness, so any type of turmoil, stress again, anxiety, these are all things that are gonna impact our mental health. Without the balance, just like we do with our physical, we can see struggles arise. So we're gonna look at 4 different areas right now, and the most important is gonna be recognizing risks in your workplace. So number 1, burnout, I mentioned, we're gonna talk about it in a second. Physical demands and stress. So physical demands, why might that be a risk for substance use? Yes.
The majority of us here have very physical jobs. So if there's any kind of pain or anything, eventually they'll start taking painkillers, and then it could lead to addiction.
Excellent, thank you. I'm hearing Percocets over in my ear here. Yeah. Same thing. My cousin worked in the trades, and he died of an overdose 3 weeks ago after a overdose on opiates, and he had a injury, and he had back surgery, and really never came back from it. So huge, huge risk around this. And I'm going to give a question or just kind of food for thought at the end of the presentation for everyone to take away, keep reflecting on, because we need to kind of look at how we can better support these other risks that I mentioned. I don't have time to get into all of it today, but yes, absolutely. High incidence of injury, which we just spoke about, working away from home. Why would that increase our risk for substance use? Loneliness, absolutely. We just talked about those 3 pillars of mental health, so social connection, physical health, and emotional health. Odds are, plus the other risks, we're not doing so great, right? We're tired physically, maybe even injured. We don't have our people with us. Sure enough, we may try and cope in other ways, right? Anything else from working from home? Isolation? Maybe it's also time to celebrate, not too sure. Maybe taking a break, gonna have a couple of extra beers or something at the end of the day. But yeah, anything else to add to working from home? Poor eating habits, absolutely. Moving around a lot, yeah, less, yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, go for it.
You'd just be stressed out about thinking about your home life, whether you have a wife, kids, or any significant other.
It's a great point. Mm-hmm.
You're away working 10 hours, and then you get home, you sit in a room alone, and all you're thinking about is could be taking the kids to hockey, could be helping cook.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, Steve, go ahead.
Social part of going back and having a couple with whoever's at the hotel.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's what I was maybe trying to allude to is where you're staying. You can say, I get to have the next couple of weeks. I have a colleague who goes as a nurse practitioner, works out west, and you know, it's kind of a break, he says. I'm like, I kind of like it. I'm away, and I get to just kind of do my own thing for a couple of weeks. Work hard, of course, but you know, it might be a break of just the responsibilities that we have in life, right? So all really great points, and we can see how easy it is. So in this entire conversation, we have yet to put a face to addiction, right? We're not saying it's all people who are A, B, and C. This is really common, you know, straightforward links to potential substance use. And this is where I'm going to talk a little bit about normalizing asking for help. Mention a lot in this conference. I want to make a really important note. We need to normalize the right things. We don't need to normalize everything. We need to normalize the right things. So what I mean by that is we can normalize asking for help, but we can't be normalized having 7 drinks at the end of the day. Okay, Scott does it, so I'm gonna do it, right? That normalize it. That's gonna contribute to, you know, a workplace culture, which is my next point, that can be really risky for everyone. Okay, recognizing risk for substance use. Workplace culture. So just to break this down a little bit, it's a collective set of norms that are of behavior that are exhibited by individuals within an organization. These are socially created. What does that mean?
Peer pressure.
Yep, it can be peer pressure. What else if they're socially created? Do we have control over them? Yes. Who said yes? Excellent, Shannon. Absolutely. So we made them. We can unmake them, right? Which is really hopeful. So if there's a dynamic, it's been learned over time, we can break that and relearn these things. It's just about actually doing it. So that's what I like to call the art of the possible. That's exactly what happens with little advocacy groups and, you know, people who are wanting to make social change or policy change. It's people saying we're not going to have these norms anymore, and we want to change this up. Okay, chronic stress in the workplace. What are some examples of chronic stress in your workplace? I'm just getting to know you guys, so teach me. Yes. Timeline and budgets. Those sound very stressful. Heads nods, yeah. What else? Yes.
Working in very dangerous environment.
I couldn't imagine. My partner is a first responder, a police officer in Toronto, and talk about this all the time. It's like every day you walk out your door and he could not come back. It's very, very scary, very stressful. And why does this what makes it chronic? I think we can understand that it's stressful, certainly, but what makes it chronic? All the time, constant. Yep. Pardon me? Preoccupying. Yeah, almost consuming in a way. Habitual. You guys know a lot about this. Was that a hand? Was that a half hand? Okay, I thought maybe. What else? Anybody? Yeah, oh man, I love that point. It's cyclical. So, you know, you're like, okay, I'm gonna get all of Scott's tips and I'm gonna do them, but then I'm gonna go back in danger. Like it's really difficult to get stuck in that cycle. And when you put stress, trauma, burnout all together, guess what they like to do all together? They just like to keep perpetuating each other, building off each other. They're like fruit flies. I tried. Okay, great understanding. Now, is there a difference between chronic stress and burnout, based on what you know so far? We're going to talk more about burnout, but from what you know now, is there a difference between chronic stress and burnout? Yes? What is it? Mm-hmm. The result of chronic stress. Okay. Let's keep going. What else? What are some other thoughts? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it can go the other way. Yeah, interesting. Yep. Any other thoughts? Which is which? Oh my gosh, I love these perspectives because I don't hear a lot. The burnout first. Yes, go for it.
So for example of chronic stress in the workplace, quite often a lot of our crews move from job to job.
Mm-hmm.
You never get used to hotel beds are always different. Sometimes you get a good one, a bad one.
Yeah.
Just not enough sleep, even though you may just be in bed.
Yeah.
You don't get rest.
Yeah. I love the imagery that comes along with burnout because when we use that word or we really start to feel like we're there, we are done. We are physically, emotionally, and exhausted. Like we're out. We're out. We're tapping out. We can't do it anymore. We've pushed ourselves to the limit where chronic stress has maybe happened for so long, we have no more. I've been there. Has anyone else been there? Yeah. What about chronic stress? Who has experienced chronic stress? Big hands. Yes. Big hands up. Yeah, and to Shannon's point, this is going to depend on person to person. So my tolerance for it might be really low, whereas someone else's tolerance might be really high. My industry is different than yours. So it's really hard to understand these terms. And the reason I think it's important that we talk about it is, and I was saying this to Kevin and Greg as to why I wanted to speak about it, because I don't even think we understand really how much it's impacting our day-to-day lives and our families and things like addiction. Okay, so contributors to burnout. We're gonna put it in three different, oh my goodness. We're gonna put it into three different categories. One is work-related. We've talked about this. I want us to also, though, look at lifestyle causes, okay, and personality traits. Hold on one second first. Who identifies as a perfectionist in this room? I'm so happy I'm among my people. Okay, who is a high achiever in this room? Yes. Table in the back, big risk for burnout, okay? Big risk. Some over here too. Who likes, and guys, this is a safe space. This is a safe space. Who likes to be in control? And I better see some hands up. Yes. Excellent. Thank you. Good job. Who would define themselves as a realist or maybe even a pessimist? Like pessimists get a bad rap, but realist, right? That's what we are. Okay. Any of those four traits give you a higher risk of burnout. And that's what we're going to try and understand right now. So the greater you are, because we're all so fantastic in this room, the more fantastic you are, the more you're going to be burnt out. And Calvin and I were actually talking about this yesterday. It's just like we care so much about our people. My phone's never off. His phone's never off. We can feel like if we miss a call, it's someone's life on the line, you know, and we care. That's an immense amount of stress. It's not okay, Calvin. We gotta turn the phones off. It's a goal. Okay, so work-related causes, lifestyle causes, and personality traits. Work-related causes, so having little or no control. And for the leaders, I want us to really look at this because these are your tips to make sure on the opposite ends of things, you can avoid these contributors so that your team doesn't get burnt out, okay? So lack of recognition, overly demanding job expectations, chaotic or high-pressure environments, and having little or no control over the work that someone's doing. Lifestyle causes, so we're not placing blame. It's not just work. Work might be stressful. Let's put it in some work stressful, we're acknowledging it. What are we doing then to counteract the stress we have at work? These are our lifestyle causes. Maybe we're working too much and we need to lessen our time at work. Maybe we're not engaging in supportive or close relationships. We're letting that exhaustion really pull us away from the people we love, and then the cycle starts, right? Too many responsibilities without enough help, or not enough sleep. We're not resting. We're not getting our rest. Okay, so those are in our buckets that we can do personally and take control over. We like control in this room. Personality traits are the ones that I mentioned. So perfectionist tendencies, if someone really just wants to do things, wants to do everything perfect, you know, you're going to stress yourself out more. Same with pessimistic view of the world, the need to be in control, or a high achieving nature. What does burnout then feel like and look like from a working standpoint? Frustration? Yeah, towards.
Just in general, like you are generally frustrated because you're not like burning out and you can't.
Yeah, generalized frustration. So it's not even like one incident. It's just every day I'm just frustrated at everybody and everything. Yeah. Excellent. Yep. 100% yes. Totally checked out. Great job. So physically drained, yeah, exhausted. So signs and symptoms, you guys hit some really great ones there. Physically, we have things like, and this isn't an exclusive list or an extensive list. There could be many things that are added here. But headaches, stomach issues, fatigue, changes in appetite or sleep. Emotional symptoms could be helplessness, we talked about before, cynicism, sense of failure or self-doubt, loss of motivation, and feeling detached or alone. So when we're feeling really frustrated with everyone, are we going to go sit and engage in some conversations on how we are? Absolutely not. We're going to be going and having lunch by ourselves because everyone's just driving us crazy. And then behavioral symptoms could be reduced performance in everyday tasks, withdrawing, isolating, procrastination, outbursts, and of course using substances to cope. All right, so we're going to look at how we can help, and we're going to use Bob, who was at Scott's presentation. You had your hand. Go ahead. Oh, you are Bob. Okay. Bob. Why don't we do, is there Peter? Is there a Peter in the room? No Peters? Let's do Peter. Okay. Pardon? We like Bob? Okay. We're going to help you. We're going to help you get better, Bob. So we're going to look at Peter. Let's pick some. Let's pick, what's his work-related cause? Which one do we want to go with? He's grumpy. Okay, yeah. But like of the work-related causes that might be happening of those four, what's causing him to be grumpy in work? Is it because he's not getting recognized? He doesn't have control over what he's doing? Which one do we want to go with? High pressure? Okay, so Peter has a lot of high pressure, chaotic environment. What about lifestyle? Not enough sleep. He's overthinking it all the time. Okay, and maybe what kind of personality trait does it sound like Peter has? He's pessimistic? Yeah? Okay, so a lot of pressure, not getting enough sleep, and he's pessimistic. So in order to move these into maybe a more holistic or healing or supportive solution or approach, I'm not going to tell you the answers yet. What could we do from a leadership side? So it's a chaotic, high-pressure environment. How can we address that? Yes, Bob? Like what? What would that look like? Alleviate his workload. Excellent. So take responsibilities away. Okay, how would we do that without making him feel like he did something wrong? How would we do that without making him feel like he did something wrong? Love it. It's easy. Yeah. So keep working with me. What would that sound like? Peter.
Recognize you're starting to slow down. You look like you're under pressure. We think you need some help. We'll get somebody to help you lessen the workload.
That's so good. I would throw just a little bit of validation in there. So Peter, I recognize there's a lot of work you're doing right now, and you're under an immense amount of pressure. Acknowledge what the problem is for the person first, and that will give you space to do all that other stuff you just mentioned, Bob. Great job. Okay, anything else we could do? Yeah. Yeah. And would we ask him about that? Just tell him he needs to? Mm-hmm. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, validation, asking what you need. I know that would make me feel good. Super easy. No counseling degree there. Yeah, totally. What do you need? And it might even be their idea. Maybe you can get some great feedback from hearing what they need and getting that feedback, right? So keep that communication open. Lifestyle causes, what can we do? What can Peter do to maybe help with the high pressure environment? What do we want? Pardon? Yeah. So in that same conversation, we might want to say, we can do this. We also want you to look at maybe unplugging from work. There's that policy that I think Peter, ironically, yesterday was showing us about disconnecting from work at 5 o'clock. I've got to get you to follow that legally. It's not even our choice. You have to do it. Perfect. And what could maybe he do with his pessimistic view? So this might go a little bit beyond, the support you would have with him in the workplace, but yeah.
If you recommend maybe connect with some social groups like community, whether or not it be volunteering or
Yeah.
tends to change your view.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys did great. Okay, so supporting our teams through burnout. That's what we're trying to do. Instead of the things we mentioned before, our leadership solutions can be create space for creativity at work. That's fun. Being creative is fun. Celebrate small wins. That's to have the lack of recognition. Sometimes just saying, hey, we got through the day today. Great job. Try to be person, staff-centered. I heard that all through what you shared, Bob. And you as well. What's your name? Matt. Thank you, Matt. And then creating safe spaces at work. Lifestyle changes. We want to encourage someone to prioritize rest, ask for help, share when you have a hard day. Yeah, that's a big one. Share when you have a hard day. Encourage members to disconnect after work as well, all things you guys thought. And then the affirmations, because this is more of our inner work we're doing, is saying things to ourselves, going back to the affirmations Scott brought up. I deserve support. Okay, I'm not a burden for asking for support. I'm not weak if I ask for support. I deserve to get support at work, and my mental health matters. And I can manage my time. I don't have to feel like someone else is managing my time. Who responds well to when you feel like you are not able to manage any of your time? I don't respond well to that. That is not a good experience. So we need to remind ourselves that I need to manage my time. I should be able to manage my time. And that I am enough to be able to prioritize rest, health, all of the good stuff that keeps us feeling happy and fulfilled. You're enough for that. Yes, James. Do you want the microphone?
Well, maybe. I think you can hear me. I'm pretty loud and obnoxious sometimes. At any rate, all of this depends on us being kind, I guess, to use the theme of the conference. It depends on the leadership or the health and safety reps, the stewards, the friends of the person involved being kind. And understanding that because maybe you're not functioning that well doesn't mean you're lazy, which we tend to say. Oh yeah, well, that idiot, he's just lazy. He doesn't do any work when he comes to work anymore. And this came to mind because there's a scientific way to tell if someone's in pain and how much pain they have. And that's to ask them. Maybe the scientific way to tell how much stress somebody's in is simply to ask them.
He's just been dropping like wisdom bombs like the last 2 days every time I talk to him. Like, okay, thanks there, James. Absolutely, totally. My favorite quote is pain plus reflection equals resilience. Okay, I mean, I don't want to go on a tangent here about the opioid crisis, but we live in a world where we expect we're going to be pain-free. It's not realistic. There's going to be pain. There's going to be emotional pain. We're talking about challenges up and down. The real place we want to get to as a community, as a workplace, as a family, person, every single level is reflection. And that's going to help you get. The only way to the other side is through. So I'm just trying to beat James's wisdom. Anyways, let's keep going. So what does a safe space really mean? And I want to hear from you guys, because I don't want to, we talk about safe spaces and make sure you talk to each other, but really, what does that mean for you guys? I'm very curious to know in your industry, safe space. So that, to be yourself, excellent, okay. What else? Free of harassment. Free of judgment, yes. So good, so important. Okay, what else? What does the actual space look like? Is it a group? Is it better one-on-one? Any of them? Is that what I heard? Yeah, either? Yes. Yeah, different for everyone. Going back to James's point, just ask. You want to talk one-on-one? You want to connect as a group? What do you need? Yep. Anything else for safe space? Physically. Yeah, absolutely. Not to make it too cheesy, I think a lot of it has to do with just being like kind and even loving. Just be kind and loving. It can be a walk. These are really simple things. Talked a lot about this already with some other people who've presented. And yeah, a few tricks that I share are pragmatically, the truth is life's stressful. We're never going to avoid it. We're going to live with stress. There is going to be stress in our lives. It's how we manage it and respond to it that is really what we're wanting to do and focus on. Same thing for pain. Like, we're going to have pain. Life sucks sometimes. And then 4 little steps, and it spells care. So connect, build relationships, acknowledge, which is what we talked about. That's the validation. Respond. So follow up, even if it's small, even if it says, you know, like Bob said, this is something that's overwhelming to you. I wonder if it's overwhelming for some other people. I'm going to look into that. See how we can maybe prevent this from happening for someone else. Just a small response. And then empathy. So just put yourself in their shoes. If you were feeling that way, what would you need? And we mentioned this before. I think Dan and Greg mentioned this earlier. 3 simple steps. Just be there. Okay, we're going to go back to the addictions a little bit and talk about myths and facts about addiction. Number 1, I'll be okay. I can manage or get away with it. Is this a myth anyone has heard or thought before? Yes? Okay. Fact is, could be denial, very common, and it's what we call a defense mechanism to maybe a problem at hand. Another one is, I'm struggling with substance use, or I'm finding myself maybe going down the path of addiction. There's nothing that I can do. It's too late. There's no help for me. Too long gone.
Question.
Yes?
Recently, I've heard people that are working with addicts, and particularly in Western Canada, but probably right across the country, say that there are a certain group of addicted people that cannot be cured. Do you believe that's true?
That is a great question. I am on the scale of optimism, and so I would say it's not true. But I would say that there's definitely a spectrum. And, you know, I was thinking about this before, about the face of addiction, right? So, you know, going back to what I said in the beginning, addiction doesn't have a socioeconomic status that comes with it. It's not an experience that, you know, everyone has, and so you're going to struggle with addiction. Those social determinants, as we call it, really matter in the recovery side of things. So, into your question, James, if someone's struggling with addiction and it's really, really, really deep addiction, and then they also don't have supports or resources or access to resources, that's where I think it could become incredibly difficult to really get to a place of recovery. You need the community. If you have no access to community, that's going to become difficult. Go ahead.
You also want to be able to help yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. But I think that goes whether or not there's a shopping addiction or, you know, as James, you were mentioning, that there's this really severe sort of form of addiction. Either you need to be willing to get the help. Yeah. So it's those supports and social determinants of health that I think are really key for the recovery side of things, not necessarily influential for addiction. The next one is I'm a failure for not being able to control my behavior. So myth, not a failure. as we talked about today, very easy, one experience away. Could you control that experience? Can you control if you lose someone in your life? No. Can you control if you've been assaulted or mistreated or neglected in any way? No. Okay, so these are not personal failures. This is an experience you've had to endure, and now we have to figure out how we can get through it. But like anything else, behavior, there's possible success with this, but it does take time and it does take hard work. And then another one could be, I am not the problem. Everyone else has a problem, okay? I am not the problem. That's a little bit of blame there and could be a little bit of a, red flag that maybe we need to get someone some additional support or just education around it. Few more perspectives on addiction, and this might help with what James was bringing up. And I like to provide a bit of a spectrum on perspectives because there's a lot of perspectives about addiction out there. So Gabor Mate, show of hands, do you guys know who he is? Yeah. So he is a Canadian-Hungarian trauma doctor and is kind of our great philosopher in the addictions world. I recommend you reading his books. It's substance use and addiction related, but it's also about trauma. It's about, he has one book called The Myth of Being Normal because nobody is normal. There's no such thing as normality. But he says that the source of addiction is not genetic. It is linked to childhood trauma, stress, which is what we're really, no pun intended, stressing today, and social dislocation, endemic to systems of inequality and injustice. A lot of things in that definitions that we can't control. Okay, can't control those things. Therefore, anxiety and depression are not just diagnoses. A lot of research is showing that these are simply physical symptoms of emotional pain. Physical symptoms of emotional pain. And the emotional pain are things we can't control. So I ask again, is it easy? It's not going to be easy to try and, get to a place of recovery. It's really, really hard work to, have to unpack all of this for someone. And most importantly, early intervention is more effective than rock bottom. A lot of people feel like it's like when I have nowhere else to go. I'm either going to die or I need to get help. That is not the only option. We don't have to get that far down the road in the addiction just to get help. We can ask for help. We can identify the risk way earlier, which again is why we're focusing on burnout, because we're seeing a really strong correlation between the two more and more every year. Any questions about that? Thoughts? Anyone agree with any of these? Disagree? Heads are nodding, agree? Okay, perfect. So that means we need to normalize asking for help. If we know it's a physical symptom of an emotional pain, we need to normalize asking for help. So remember the stat we said before that only 36% of our employees would tell us about their mental health? In another study, it shows 76% of employees said that they would support another person if they were experiencing a mental health challenge. And I think Scott asked this before too, that for yourselves, are we going to be that accountability person? And how many people are willing to be someone else's accountability person? Everyone's hands went up, right? So just remember that odds are, let's not put a barrier in place of asking for help. Odds are, statistics show 76% of people want to be there to help you. Those are pretty good odds. And so when you're kind of lost or unsure as to how to help someone, just really go back to basics. I say this to my students all the time, just ground down. Don't get anxious, don't try and overdo it. Our high achieving selves will be like, I'll get all these supports and sit down and do all this kind of stuff. Just keep it simple. Have a conversation, ask how the person's doing. Some ways that you can nurture mental health, your mental health, I've just put a little drawing here, but before I wrap up, I want to go to a little food for thought and get some feedback around this, because when I have people come to the treatment center, a big thing we're noticing is when they leave to go back to work. How can we make this transition smoother, more supportive? Because it feels really weird for some people, you know? It's like we're coming back to work, and, you know, do people know, or how do I hang out with my friends if I know they're all gonna go and have a drink after work? So what are some ways that we can support those returning to work after getting treatment or supports? Pardon me, say that just for the... Yeah, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. Bring them in. Yeah, give them that reassurance. I love that. That's great. James.
I know this is really hard to accomplish, I think, but if in the workplace there can be support, and that the person can talk about their addiction and the struggle they've been through and the struggle they're going through, and ask those 76% of the people for help. If they can do that themselves, because the problem, as I understand it, is that you go to a treatment center and then wonderful, you know, you're cured, quote unquote, and then you're back in the environment that helped facilitate your addiction in the first place. So I think, given the statistics of 76% of the people on site, ask for help in maintaining your sobriety.
Excellent, yeah. Keep using the skills. Shannon, go ahead.
For those that are on the road, when they come back, instead of asking them to go to the bar, ask them to go to the coffee shop.
Take out the list that Scott made. You know, go maybe do some walks in the forest and get some goals down and have those conversations, right? We can connect in that way. Yeah, absolutely. What else? Yes.
I'll say set up a safe space, you know, free of any outside stuff. Just once a week, a small group of people go out, maybe do a smudge, maybe do something. Just sit in the forest or something with goal sets, or just talk their problems out. Like, oh, this week I felt like I needed to have a drink. This week I wanted to have a cigarette. Just a little bit of everyone saying what their problem is, and just a little bit of relationship building.
Did you want to add something?
It's close to work culture. Make yourself available. Make them know that you're there when they need you.
Yeah. Some really great strategies. I mean, we haven't perfected this either. I'm working with a gentleman who came through treatment in one of our other partnerships, and as a veteran, this was like big for him recently coming back home. He was just like, oh my gosh, this has been so rough, and I think that there's a way we can do better to support someone. I'm all about finding ways to do better. So I just want to leave that with the team, and obviously, yes, Dan, go for it.
I wanted to make a point about finding or helping others or making a safe space and finding different things for that person to do or different spaces. I know with myself, when I was going through my rough spots, I had people reaching out to me, and I was like, no, I don't want it. And then they're like, hey, fine. And then I didn't hear from them for the longest time, and I needed
sure. And remembering that it's the same recovery that, yes, go ahead. Stay here. No, you go first. Yeah.
Think of physical ailments that people have, or somebody is grieving, we'd set up routines, you'd be dropping off food, and somebody else would be shoving the snow or whatever. So when people are struggling with mental health issues or substance use, you can set the same thing, like, and everybody has a different
Absolutely.
capacity, so maybe I can drop off a meal once every 2 weeks, and maybe probably they don't want my food, but I can do something else, and somebody else has the capacity to say, hey, I'm gonna come over and play cards with you. Like, we all have different skills to give to support, and you can organize that at work. Say, this is our gift.
So great. Yeah. You read my mind and used a great example that I was going to go back to Greg's presentation in that, just keep being there. The journey of healing and recovery is not linear. Okay, it's not linear. There's going to be ups and downs. Scott shared in his, past and recovery, there were ups and downs even in recovery. So we need to keep the conversations of community, kindness, love, communication, all of that kind of stuff going. Okay, so it's great feedback for me because as we continue to hopefully build out partnerships, I want to make sure that we can support everyone coming back, and we'll do whatever we can to support in that way too. So I think I'm 4 minutes behind. I'm sorry. But any last questions? I really appreciate this conversation. And that's it for me.